Now we come to the track links. The track links are a tedious task. I would sort of recommend, right, the way I've sort of found to sort of get through this nicely is do a bunch, right, do a bunch, stop, and then move along with the rest of the kit, do a bit more of the rest of the kit, just to kind of give a bit of variety, and then maybe come back, do another bunch of track links, and hopefully by the end of the build you've got them all built up, just to kind of space it out, because it does get really tedious just doing this constantly. But anyway, moving along. Now with this, you do get these nice little templates to actually cut off, and they help you put them together in a faster way. Rather than doing each and every individual track link, we get to do about 6 at a time, well 5 technically at a time. And what you want to do is you want to cut these off. Now they've nicely put these on the sprue in a way in which we can cut them off in 6s, which is rather good. It sort of speeds things up. Now these sort of pins are quite delicate, so when it comes to cutting, I always sort of go cut off a bit of the sprue so you can sort of trim it up nicely and you don't damage the piece. With these, they're so fine, and there's just so many of them. I have found that we can just actually cut right up to the piece on this one. Probably the only time I'd probably say cut right up to the piece, right? And I say this because to go off and then trim these up with a bit of the sprue left on it is quite a tedious task, and they are quite sort of brittle and delicate, right? So to go off and sort of like now sort of trim these up is a bit of a pain. But if we sort of look closely, they're actually not that bad. We don't have to really do any sort of trimming up. I'm looking at these, and actually they have cut off rather nicely, although we haven't cut them off in sort of the most traditional fashion. They're actually looking rather good, so no need to worry about them. Then we have all our sort of little bits just here, which this is a case of, yes, we've sort of got to go off and do the usual. Let's sort of shave off the little bit off the sprue, then sort of maybe sort of sand it up with the end of the blade, and it's basically doing this a lot of times, right? So we're getting these all trimmed up. Same with this part of the track link. It's a little bit sort of hard to hold, a little bit more flimsier, but you know, same sort of principle with these as well. So I'll just finish that up. As for flash, I haven't noticed much flash. I mean, there is the odd rare occasion where there might be a little bit of flash, so you know, as you're sort of trimming up each one, look for a little bit of flash, because that would be a bit nasty to see. And then this is where it gets kind of nice. Basically we get our piece which has got all 6 of them on. You want to feel for the little nipple on the center. You'll see that there's like a little nipple going down the center. That's what you want facing up, right? And then we simply place this on here like so. Now we've got to be careful with the glue in this one. I say this, let's get you in a bit closer. I say this, we've got to be careful with the glue, because if we get too much glue down, it's going to start going onto our pins, and once it goes onto the pins, it then starts gluing the pins together, and then you don't get this nice flowing track going on. It ends up being quite stiff and glued into place, so we've got to be a little bit careful. So I'm just coming in with the Tamiya extra thin cement, the quick setting one. I want something nice and sort of quick setting. All right, and what we're going to do is make sure our paintbrush isn't absolutely overloaded, and then all right, I'm going to go for these little holes just here. You see these little holes? Just give them a nice little bit of the Tamiya extra thin cement, and only there really. And then we want to come in with the top part, making sure we've got one of the track pins either side, and we just push that down. And if I lift that up, we should see that we've got the 2 parts, top and bottom of the track, with the pins going through that one bit of track just there. And then it's just a case of going along one by one, putting a little drop of the extra thin in those 2 little holes, coming along with the top part of the track link, and just pressing that down, and hopefully just get that out of the way. Hopefully, as you can see, you know, we're getting both the pins in there, and we just move ourselves along. Now we have one sort of track link basically finished. Now we can't go off and add one to this end one here, although there's space for 6. If we add one here, right, we don't have a pin going through it, and we need to have one of these pins going through at this end. So basically we have to start another row of 6. So we can take this off, right, and actually we can cut this off first to be totally fair. So what we're going to do is we're just going to come at it at, say, this angle, right, and again, you know, I don't really want to be cutting it like this, but because they're so flimsy, I am. Right, if we cut that off, we should have a track that all nicely moves. Right, it's a good idea to make sure it is moving, right, because at this stage, while the glue's kind of still wet, just in case you have accidentally got a little bit on the pin and it's feeling a little bit resistant, if you sort of play with it a bit and just see, kind of keep sort of moving it like this, what will happen is the glue would sort of start to lose its tackiness or whatever, and then you it should be sort of nice and free. But what you sort of do want to do is, we have just cut this off of the sprue, so it's just a case of coming along and just sort of scraping off any leftover bits of the sprue. Little bit sort of tricky, well, a little bit sort of fiddly and tricky. You have got to be sort of careful. Might have to shave a bit off this one, but you do need to sort of neaten it up a bit. Right, just be careful with the end ones because they're a little bit more weaker, right, because there isn't a track sort of holding them in. Let's shave that one a little bit. What you also want to do is make sure that you'll see just sort of on the inside of the pin there's a recess one side. I don't know how well you can see it, but there's a recess one side of the pin, but then the opposite side there isn't a recess. And basically what you want to do, if we can focus, is make sure that they're all the same on each side. So when you come to put a new set of track links onto this, make sure, you know, the recess is on one side and the non-recess is on the other, so it's all around nice. So then what we need to do is basically start building a second lot of track links. So with the second lot of track links ready to go, what we want to do is, this is where we attach one set of track links to the next. Now in the instructions it will have you sort of put it on here and bring the pin onto there. As you can see, a little bit sort of tricky. So what I found, if we bring this to maybe the middle instead, line up those track links there, line up these track links there, and it just all sits a lot better and easier. And then plain and simply, like you're probably already sort of getting used to at this stage, is get your little bits of Tamiya just in there, and then we place this on so is that we bring the two track links together, nice little press, and there you go. These should now be nice and linked. Right, so all we need to do is cut these off and trim them up, and basically repeat that process several times. Just make sure again that your recess is one side on the pins and your non-recess is on the opposite side. One just quick sort of tip is, each one of these sprues is about what was it again, I think it was about 48 track links, but basically what you want to do is, to save you constantly counting your track links and making sure you have 84, I do believe, basically build everything on one sprue, and then on the second sprue build everything but leave 2 of these sets of 6, right? And by doing that, you should end up with 84 track links. So good luck with doing it all. It is very, very tedious. It is one of those things where personally I like to get out some audio books and listen to that while I'm sort of building it, and going along, and you know, it is kind of relaxing. I know some of you might not find it that way, but I find it kind of relaxing listening to an audio book, going through them all, and I've still got another track link to do, so I'll let you know how bored I get with it by the end of that. But let's move on with the next bit.